In the quiet village of Kutama, southern Rhodesia, a boy was born on February 21, 1924. His name, Robert Gabriel Mugabe. Raised by a devout Catholic mother and a carpenter father, Mugabe's early life was marked by loss, discipline, and books. He was quiet, reserved, but his mind was sharp. Education became his escape. From Kutama College to Fort Hare in South Africa, Mugabe absorbed ideas of liberation and African pride. Later in Ghana, he taught at St. Mary's Teacher Training College, where he met Sally Hayfron, his first wife, and discovered the fire of Kwame Nkrumah's Pan-Africanism. In 1960, Mugabe returned to Rhodesia, but he was no longer just a teacher, he was a revolutionary. He joined the National Democratic Party, then ZANU, breaking away from Joshua Nkomo's ZAPU. His speeches were bold, his words dangerous.
Accepting as a starting point that the races are different and this difference must be recognized. We are non-racialist in our approach. That is, we regard as an individual as an individual, and that everybody must be accorded his full political rights, whether he be white or black, educated or uneducated, rich or poor. And this is exactly why we are at the moment struggling to earn for our people one man, one vote.
In 1964, he was arrested for subversive speech and spent the next 11 years in prison. Behind bars, Mugabe studied law, wrote letters, and plotted. When released in 1975, he fled to Mozambique and took command of ZANLA, the armed wing of ZANU. The Bush War intensified, villages burned, soldiers died. But Mugabe's influence grew. By 1980, the war ended. Zimbabwe was born, and Robert Mugabe stood before the nation as its first prime minister. He spoke of reconciliation, of unity, of rebuilding. The world applauded, the people danced, the liberator had arrived. But history is never simple. In 1987, Mugabe became president. His grip on power tightened. Opposition was crushed. The Gukurahundi massacres in Matabeleland left thousands dead. The liberator's image began to crack. Through the 1990s and 2000s, Zimbabwe's economy collapsed. Land reform turned violent, farms were seized, inflation soared, millions fled the country. Mugabe blamed the West, but the people blamed him. Yet Mugabe remained defiant. He ruled for 37 years. Even as age slowed him, his speeches remained fiery. In 2017, his own party turned against him. The military intervened, and Mugabe resigned, quietly, reluctantly. On September 6, 2019, Robert Mugabe died in Singapore. He was 95. His body was returned to Kutama, the village where it all began. Robert Mugabe was a man of contradictions, a teacher who became a fighter, a liberator who became a ruler, a hero to some, a villain to others. But one thing is certain, he shaped Zimbabwe's destiny like no other. This is the story of Robert Gabriel Mugabe, the man, the myth, the legacy. And for Zimbabwe, the question remains, what do we remember and what do we choose to forget? When Zimbabwe emerged from the ashes of colonial rule in 1980, Robert Mugabe stood at the helm, not just as a leader, but as a symbol of African liberation. His voice echoed across the continent, calling for unity, education, and dignity. In his early years, Mugabe was hailed as a visionary. Under his leadership, Zimbabwe launched the Growth with Equity policy, a bold plan to uplift the peasant sector long neglected by colonial regimes. Roads were built, clinics opened, schools multiplied. Education became a cornerstone of his legacy. Mugabe's government introduced free education for all, and by the late 1980s, Zimbabwe had one of the highest literacy rates in Africa. Children in rural villages could now dream beyond the dust. Healthcare followed. The Health for All initiative brought basic medical services to communities that had never seen a doctor. Vaccination programs, maternal care, and rural outreach transformed public health. Mugabe also pushed for national unity. In 1987, he signed the Unity Accord with Joshua and Nkomo, merging ZANU and ZAPU into ZANU-PF, ending years of political violence and tribal division. But perhaps his most controversial and defining project was the land reform program. In 2000, Mugabe launched a campaign to redistribute land from white commercial farmers to landless black Zimbabweans. It was a move rooted in justice, but marred by chaos. International donors once rallied behind Zimbabwe. In 1981, the government hosted the Zimcord Conference, securing over $1.3 billion Zimbabwean dollars in pledges for reconstruction and development. The world believed in Mugabe's vision. Robert Mugabe's legacy is complex. He was a liberator, a builder, and a man who dared to dream for his people. His early years brought hope, progress, and pride. And while history may debate his later choices, the foundations he laid still echo in Zimbabwe's soil.